Well, obviously, we're past the midterm election. We got 50% of what we wanted. We didn't get it all, but that's okay. It means we just got to work a little harder going forward. But we got 2 years, and this 2 years is going to be packed with a lot of people saying this and people saying that. Make sure that you seek out the person that you really want to vote for, and don't just say, okay, first out, this is who I'm going to vote for, and you go ahead and set your mind to that. Make sure you take this 2 years to study all of what this person's about, and make sure that whenever you, and talk to your friends about it, have some discussions about it. I hope the American people know after 2 years what our current president's agenda is. We know what he said when he was campaigning against President Trump, and he's stood pretty tight on that. Matter of fact, I think he's even expanded, and it looks like he's got a lot on his agenda for the next 2 years. He's going to try to crowd a bunch of stuff in the next month or so, also before the other people get sworn in. But here's what we need to do going forward. Look at what your pocketbook is today, what things cost today, and what they cost 2 years ago. Nobody has to sell you on something. Be your own judge. Look at your own household. Look what it costs to fill your car up. It's come down some, thank goodness for that. Look what it costs to buy your groceries. Look where we are today, and look where you were 2 years ago. I've heard a lot of politicians just always say, well, are you better off today than you were 2 years ago? Well, obviously we're not, but we're not bad enough off, I guess, because we didn't change the House and the Senate. I'm a little bit shocked that we had 70-something million people vote for President Trump, and then we had a little over half of that come back in the midterm and vote to try to change the House and the Senate. That tells me that we're more focused on who's president of the United States and not who's in the Senate and the House. And I can assure the American people that you need to focus on all of that. All three of these are very important: the House, the Senate, and the White House. And when one group has 100% of that, which they've had for 2 years, then you see what the outcome of that is. There's a lot of fallout for what's going on. And I know that we hear a lot about the Green New Deal. We hear a lot about the electric cars, and we hear a lot about shutting down this industry or that industry. There's a lot of people poking at one another. He said and I said. The lawyers would say that's hearsay. So what we want to do over the next 2 years, our team is going to go out and we're going to visit with towns that have been affected by President Biden's policies. If there's a town a plant that's been shut down, a steel mill is not working because we can't fire it with coal, or a power plant can't work because we're not going to use coal, or we're going to shut down nuclear powerhouses across the United States. I want to go see where the fallout is for the next 2 years, and I want to report that back to you so you can see what the policies of the current administration are doing to this country. Don't be mistaken, that what you hear, just because the White House says something, that doesn't make it true. Bear it out for yourself. We're intelligent people. Although right now around the world, a lot of the foreign countries view us as not being very intelligent. We're shutting down our oil and gas industry. We're switching over to an unreliable electric system that we don't even really know how that's going to come out. But yet, if you look at some of the other foreign countries that have tried this in the past, you can see they've had a lot of failures with that. So for us to just go all in, dive in without testing the depth of the water, that's not very smart. And we're doing that, and we're doing it just by leaps and bounds. It's like it's a hurry up. And when you hurry up on something, then usually you make a lot of mistakes and you drop a lot of things that you should go back and pick up and try to straighten up later. But when plants start closing, and right now across the United States, there's a lot of refineries, oil, petrochemical plants, they're looking at closing. For them to repair what they need to repair right now to get up to code to the new restrictions that the White House has got on them, a lot of them are going to close some of these smaller marginal plants down. And when you close several of those down across the United States, understand it's not just the 150 or 200 or 300 people working in that plant. When you close a plant down in a small community, then you've hurt the tax for that school district. the police department, the fire department. It's got a lot of repercussions completely through that community. It's not just the people that get the pink slip. The stores are going to suffer. Everything's going to suffer when you take the breadwinner of that community away as an industry. So make sure you understand that whenever we just generate electricity from a wind farm or solar field out here, and it comes on transmission to your house, we've eliminated a lot of jobs, obviously. And maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I maintain it's a bad thing. I don't think it's going to be any cheaper. Matter of fact, I think it's going to be more expensive, and I know it's going to be a lot less reliable. But in the meantime, when you look around a refinery and you see the amount of trucks that go in and out of that facility a day, carrying pallets, carrying chemicals, carrying people in and out, that's going to stop. When it stops, those trucks, that is going to quit going through that community. Those people that stop at a store, grab a sandwich, get something cold to drink, those people are not going to be there. So that economy leaves that area when you replace it with just electric grid coming into the city. Not saying the electric grid is not where we want to go. We do need it, obviously. Nobody would like to go home today and their power's off, obviously. We've grown dependent on it. We've grown kind of soft. We like the air conditioning. We like the warmth in the wintertime. And it's comfortable. It's clean. But it's unreliable. We live here on the Gulf Coast where we have a lot of problems with the hurricanes and some tornadoes. And when they come through and they devastate a town or a community, and then you come back for 3 weeks to 5 weeks to 8 weeks to get that city or that community back up where they have electricity, we depend on generators here. A lot of towns, a lot of big hospitals depend on generators. They're run by natural gas or diesel. So if we're not going to have natural gas and diesel, or going to have a limited supply of it, how do you power up the generators to keep people from freezing or burning up in the summertime? There's a lot of things that I don't think has been thought out completely on this. And again, that's what happens when you're in haste and you go out here and you take over, and going to change an industry, or you change a country that's been doing something for over 100 years and you want to change it, and you set a time limit. We're going to do this by 2035, or maybe we'll stretch it out to 2050. That's just to appease the American people, saying we'll go out to 2050. There's so much at hand out here for us to look at. So don't just find you a candidate and say, this is the man or woman I want to vote for. Make sure you look at their policies and what they stand for, and make sure that you know these people. And you take the whole 2 years. As soon as somebody announces they're going to run, start doing your homework on that person right now. Because if you don't, then when the election time comes, don't blame anybody but yourself. Look in the mirror if you didn't vote right. Because we know, we have a taste of what the Biden administration will do. We've had 2 years of it. And for you and for me, I've suffered. Our area suffers. Our business, our own business right here, is suffering tremendously. Now, that's not the reason I'm doing this. It's 72 years old. I don't need to get up and come down here a whole lot many more years. But I can guarantee you this area, the Gulf Coast, this is where the refineries are. This is where the jet fuel is made for our nation. And I would question that our military, if we're going to have a strong military, which this country has always prided itself with a strong military, you take the oil and gas industry away, and you're going to shrink your military. You're going to fix it where your military has to depend on some foreign country to get the diesel to run that equipment. It's going to be a long time before all your tanks, your Apache helicopters, no, it's going to run on a battery. Don't fool yourself, America. It's not going to be 100% carbon free. It can't be. It'll never be. That's a misstatement. I won't call it a lie. I'll just say it's a misstatement. Bad judgment. We'll never get there. And if you strive to get there, you're going to destroy this country. And this is a shame to look back and see where we are today and where we've been. And we've got a lot of other problems that face this country, and most of it's political, because our politicians fuss and fight. And if you come from a household where mom and dad fuss and fight all the time, it's hard to get the kids not to do that sooner or later. But you have to settle your differences as a country without the fussing and fighting that the Democrats and Republicans do. All it is pointing a finger at one another. And it seems like that it gets worse as time goes on. And then, if somebody hasn't done anything wrong, I think they just up and lie about the other side. I'm not picking sides on that issue. I'm just saying we need to, as politicians, please stay on the issue, what affects America and American people's lives. If you do your job right and you study out everything that you need to before you make your mind up or your direction, chances are you're going to make a lot more right moves than bad moves. This administration is, for some reason, just 100 miles an hour, can't get enough, can't change things quick enough, can't run over the top of people. We're giving money away at a pace it's unprecedented. We're giving billions of dollars away. We're fighting wars that are not here. If you took one of those allotments, one 50 or 70 or 80 billion dollar package, and you gave that across the United States to help our police departments, you could put 2 policemen in every car. You could help stamp out the crime that's eroding this city, eroding the country, eroding your county. It's unbelievable what you could do with that much money if you put it back to work here in this country. We need to have safe streets. We need to have secure borders. We need to have safe schools. We have to have good jobs. We have to have people that have got their head on straight in what they're about. This deal of always being mad at the other side, you get nothing done that way. I'm hoping that if you ever see anything that we post, if you know of any town, any plant that was closed, any school district that's having a hard time because the tax base left, if you see any of that, if you know of that, please post that so we can I'd like to get in touch with that town. I'd like to interview one of those people, or maybe more of those people that unfortunately lost their job, that may be 5 or 10 or 15 years from retirement, but yet now all this has been thrown away. Maybe a second or third generation working at a plant or a coal mine. To have that taken away at this juncture is totally unfair. That's not what this country is about. You know, we might want to progress, and that's fine. You always want to try to do better, but not at the cost of humans, their lives, their families being devastated, and that's what's going to happen. And I'm afraid, America, please wake up before you go to the store and you can't open the door, or you go to the station and you can't get any gas because it's out, and then you ask what happened. It's happening to you today. We're putting all of our eggs in one basket, and it's called a foreign basket. We're doing away with what we do here in this country, what we've always done for over 150 or 200 years. We've always stood on our own. We've taken care of ourselves. We've taken care of our allies. But we're spending money so fast right now, there's no way they can keep up with it. And they're digging the hole for your children, your grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, a hole that they may never get out of. And that's unfair for them to inherit that. They should inherit what me and you inherited, not what's being put to them today. I hope most of you look at this and you say, you know what, maybe the old man's got something today. I'm not trying to tell you who to vote for. I'm just trying to tell you, go out there and look at where your life is today, what your community's about, the schools. Look at your police department. Look at your hospitals. They all depend on tax dollars. And if you take your industry away, you take these refineries, you take these power plants away, it's not just clean energy. What you're going to do is you're going to do away with a lot of thousands, tens of thousands, if not millions of jobs in the economy that goes with that. So I don't know that the economist in Washington has figured all that in. I'd be willing to bet you they haven't, because if they had figured it all in, they'd slow this thing down. We can get there. We need alternative energies. That's fine to have a backup. But for that to be the primary, I think is a mistake. If we believe what we read, and I guess that's all we have is we read what the news media lets us read, or what somebody sends to you. But if you believe what you read, you have to believe that our president is on this mission to get his Green Deal done in the next couple of years, or at least get it so far into it that the next administration is going to have to stay with it if it's not him. You've had 2 years of where we are. You see, you kind of got that as a track record now. These next 2 years are probably going to pick up some steam. Hopefully the House is going to help us a little bit there. But if there's 4 more years of it, if you just multiply the cost of food by 2 for 2 more years from where it is now and where it was 2 years ago, then double it again, then easy math tells you that we're headed in the wrong direction. And a lot of people right now, unfortunately, are living on their credit cards because they don't have this $7,000 or $8,000 inflation that's been put on them as a household, depending on how many people in that house. And that's going to come back to haunt them very, very soon because they can't get out from under it. They're still they're still on that. A lot of them are paying the minimum on it, and it's very sad for them at the end of the year to have a credit card debt of $7,000 or $8,000 and not have anything to show for it. They didn't buy anything. They didn't buy an appliance or something for their children or something for their household. They used that to exist. That's called an exist debt. That was just to eat and just to get back and forth to school or back and forth to work. How unfair to the American people for the inflation to be what it is today because of Joe Biden's policies. A lot of things during the election when we talked about crime, we talked about the border, we talked about a whole lot of things that the Democrats were real clever of saying, well, that was the prior administration or 2 administrations ago or 3 administrations ago. And some of that you'd have to say, you know what? These problems have been around a long time. Crime's been around a long time. We've had a border problem for a long, long time. We've had a whole lot of things, they were slick and you couldn't really hang them on that. So all we want to do now for the next 2 years is just hone in on Joe Biden's policies. Just his policies. And you look at his policies and see if you're better off in 2 years from where you are now and certainly 2 years ago. And I'll assure you, if something doesn't change that's magical, then you're going to be in a lot worse shape. And that's sad because people are struggling right now. And he said when he was running against President Trump, he said it's going to be painful for the American people, but you're just going to have to endure it. Well, I don't think he's felt the cost of gas or the cost of food or any shortage of anything. So it's unfair for the American people to have to be done the way they're being done. And when you look around the country, for some reason, people are always wanting to apologize for something that somebody else done. I don't mind apologizing for something that I did, and I don't mind taking the blame for something if my company caused it or so forth. But right now, the United States is taking the blame for bad management in Washington. That we've, for some reason, over the years, the last 100 years, we've not done things right. So we come back now and we want to apologize. You see people apologizing everywhere for everything. They're sorry about this and they're sorry about that. And if we were going to be sorry for somebody that had hard times put on them years ago, I'd want to feel sorry for a military person that was drafted that didn't want to go in World War I or II or Korea or Vietnam, but came back with a limb missing or maybe didn't come back. And do you see anybody standing in line today wanting to give their family hundreds of thousands of dollars because they had a hardship or they had something bad put on them that they didn't want? There's a lot of things happen in life that you don't really want. But, if you just want to find somebody to blame, I guess we can always point the finger at somebody. But right now, if we don't change where America is today, if you don't change the administration in 2 years, I'm talking about clean the slate. Make sure you have the House, the Senate, and the White House. If you don't do that, then don't blame me. Don't point the finger at anybody. Like I said earlier, it's you. We have the vote. We have the power of the vote. And maybe in the last election, we come back and we say, well, maybe they cheated a little bit. They didn't cheat 100 million votes. He got a lot of votes. We just need to get it. They outworked us, and don't let that happen again. It's just like being in a prize fight. In the first round, you kind of seek one another out. And as it goes on, you're either behind or you're ahead, and the coach is telling you, your manager's telling you what you need to do. But what you can't never do is you can't give up until the last bell rings. And that's what it looks like we're doing. We're giving up. We're saying, well, it's not going to make any difference. It does. You have all the difference. You are the difference. The Congress, the Senate, and the White House work for you. For some reason, over the years, it's gotten to where they think they run everything for us. And unfortunately, they do. And we don't. And only way we can change it is to vote them out. But we don't do it. I hear people complain about it all the time. And then when I talk to them about their vote, I say, well, it's not going to do any good. Well, evidently it doesn't if you don't vote. but we're going to have to. His policies are going to be devastating to this country. There's no way that you can farm out all of your petrochemical business. You know, if we shut down drilling in this country and we shut down refineries, you got to understand, and I've talked about it before, that there's 40% of that barrel goes in petrochemicals for your plastics and all the things you use around your house. Isn't it going to be a shame if we have to import that too? It's not, and we talk about we don't like some of the illegal labor that's working in this country. But yet the amount of illegal people working in this country today, not that I'm condoning it, what I'm saying is that's a small amount of jobs when you look at the grand scheme of things. When you look at how much you import into this country on a yearly basis, it dwarfs the amount of illegal people in this country. We're letting foreign people build things for us every day. It's just coming from China or some other country. So for people just to hone, but they hone in just on the Mexican border, which is important because for some reason our president has opened that border now. We've always had a problem with the border. I'll grant you that, but not to the extent that we just gave up and wouldn't do anything about it. We're saying now that there's not a problem. There's 300 people dying every day from the fentanyl overdose. That the drugs are pouring in here. That's coming from China, and we all know it. And so what we want to do is just look the other way until it affects you. There's no two ways about what's going on. Just look at his policies. Look at shutting down the economy that this country has lived on and thrived on for over 100 years is ridiculous. And then to pump our oil out of storage, that's for our national defense, to lower the price around the country so he can get his people voted back in. If you didn't see through that, then something's wrong. We know what he did, and we're not going to put it back in so I guess now when we fill it back up, it's going to be Venezuela or Iran or Colombia or OPEC. That's who's going to fill our storage back up? That's a horrible situation for America to shut down our own drilling and to have to buy oil and go around the world asking for oil. How ridiculous. 2 years ago, we were a net exporter of oil, and now we're begging countries. And if you look at, if you read what I read, and I read every day something about what's going on, we've got countries all around the world right now that are gearing up to drill for oil. Small countries that don't produce 300,000 or 400,000 barrels a month. They're looking at going to 1 million barrels. You look at OPEC's looking at moving from 5 million to 7 million barrels. They're all looking at gearing up and putting billions of dollars in their drilling program while we're shutting ours down. And what does that tell you? They know we're destined for failure. And when we holler that we need help, they're going to be there, but it's not going to be there at $100 a barrel because we can't offset it. It'll be whatever price they want to charge us. And we're digging that hole today. And at the same time, we're making sure that we're laying people off in the process. And I don't know how many people the government thinks that we can just pay to sit at home. Right now, the prime working age, I think, is 34 to 54 or 25 to 54, somewhere in that area. We're at a record high. We got more people, more men sitting at home today than we had in 1940. And we had 15% unemployment in 1940. But we got that many people sitting at home today not working. What is the government? There's an end game here that they're promoting stay at home and don't go to work. And let's sub everything out. Let's let the rest of the world make everything for us because we want to be clean here. We want to watch our environment, make sure our environment's clean. But when you look at oil and gas and manufacturing around the world, we're the cleanest. We're the lowest carbon emissions country in the world. And we're going to quit doing it. We're going to let somebody else take that portion over for us. They're not going to be as clean as us. You're going to breathe that air. It goes up into the atmosphere. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to make it worse. I maintain in a few years when you look at where we really are with carbon emissions, you're going to see that the world is in a worse situation than it is today because the country that does it the best is going to quit. Now, what does that tell you? It's a sad situation. And, again, I keep coming back to the same thing. Look at look at this next politician. When you hone in on who your next senator, the next congressman you want, the next president of the United States. Look at the vice president a lot harder than you ever looked at a vice president before. Because I'm hoping that when the next president gets in there, that vice president is super strong, and he or she will pay close attention for 4 or 8 years and be our next leader. We need 16 to 12 years of good, solid judgment in the White House, or this country is going to get to a point that it's going to be hard to get back. You know, some people talk about a phrase called a slippery slope. When you start down a slippery slope, once you made that move, you can't get back. And I'm afraid America is already moving down the slippery slope. When giant oil companies say they're not going to repair a refinery, it's marginal, we'll shut that one down, then you're going to lose that. When we close down nuclear powerhouses across this country that supply 18% of our electricity, how are you going to get that back? I don't know that there'll ever be enough wind farms or solar panels to ever even pick that up. So I don't know that everything's been looked at real hard, except let's do this because this is what the administration wants to do. And we think that we're right. And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say that right now Washington's not doing things deliberately to hurt us. I think they're just sold on their policies, but they're wrong. I mean, how many times have you thought you were going in the right direction and you found out you were going in the right direction later? Because if you can change on the fly, that's good. But when you devastate an industry that's been around 150 years and it leaves, you can't change that on the fly. It would take years and decades to try to get it back. And the amount of suffering this country is going to have financially, and there'll be a lot of mental problems with it too. Every time you have employment, you have a lot of mental problems. You have a lot of problems in the street. You have all kinds of. The police department gets put on alert every time you have this kind of problem. We strain our resources daily now, and what we're going to do is going to put them in overload. Please take it serious what I'm telling you, and read it for yourself. Every time we post an article about a town or a plant or a refinery that is shut down, you look that up yourself. And you tell me after we do 30 or 40 or 50 of those in this country, how long it's going to take us to ever get that back. Exxon, the big giant companies, they can buy the product and bring it in here and distribute it to us. So they're not going to lose out completely. But their stockholders, their board of directors don't want them to put billions of dollars in a marginal plant whenever the government says they don't want what that plant produces anyway. And that's just a good business decision not to do it. But at the same time, it's devastating to these communities across our nation. And I hope you'll help me and join with me and make sure that we pick the right politicians to run this country in the future. Let's talk a little bit about the environmental impact of the Green Deal. This battery deal to run the world on is certainly in its infant stage. We've all liked a flashlight so you could have instant power, and that's a good thing, batteries. But batteries conk out and you're on the side of the road or whatever it is. But let's look at the environmental impact of this. We talk about drilling for oil and gas and the coal and all the problems we have with that environmentally. I mean, we've beat that drum for a long time. But look at mining for your batteries, all of the product that it takes to make a battery. And then what happens when that battery its useful life is over? How do we dispose of it? And where are we going to get all this from? And how has that been explored? And I think if you read most of it, they say they want to do that. We want to buy that from foreign countries again. I know that on the solar panels, that's coming from China. There's a lot of solar farms right now that's already ready to go online right now. It's completely built. The only thing they're waiting on is the solar panels to come in from China. All the steel, all the infrastructure is there, but they can't come online because they don't have any solar panels. So again, we farmed out our Green Deal to China. But I've looked at it, and you'll have to vet this out yourself about how they mine the different minerals that go in batteries and just how toxic a battery is. You think about it over the years, just if you go out and your car won't crank and you have to jump it, you got to be real careful what you do right there. The acid and all the things that's in a battery. So to say that the Green Deal is going to be replaced, all these bad things we've had with refineries and coal plants and nuclear plants. All those things have been around for a long time. We've had some problems with them, obviously, and we haven't had anything that we really couldn't go back and clean up. Some is worse than others. But if you're going to turn everything to a battery that we know has a lot of problems in disposing of, it's not that big a deal to dispose of what comes out of a refinery. We got a lot of technology on that. We've been doing it for a long time. I think what we're doing is putting too much stock in the fact that we think we have it all worked out right now on batteries. I think we need to spend more time and ease into it. I don't want to see batteries go away. We use them every day. It cranks our equipment. It holds that charge for that. It certainly has a lot of advantages for us. But to say that you're going to do completely away with the way we've been traveling around the world and going to turn that over to a battery, I think is very short-sighted. But I want you to really look and dig down. We're going to put that on our website a lot about where the minerals and what it takes to make a battery. Where's that come from? Who are the people that's actually mining that? What kind of mine is it? Is it an open mine or is it an enclosed mine? So there's a whole lot of things there that I think are unanswered too. And then how do they dispose of it? How do you dispose of the windmill blades? They wear out too. So there's going to be things to have to dispose of going down this new Green Deal. This is a path that's uncharted, and I think we need to ease into it instead of full blast what we're doing. It's like it's a race. Well, I know the president is in a hurry to try to get this done. And it's because of, he knows he has 2 more years. So let's get in a hurry to get it done. Let's just do what's right for America. Because I guarantee if the administration is doing what's right for America, the next administration will pick it up and go with it too. And let's quit changing just because you got sworn in. If the prior administration had a good policy going, stay with it. It's helping America. I mean, why would you inflict pain on Americans just because you don't like your predecessor? That's foolish. But look hard, and we're going to spend a lot of time putting a lot out for you to read about how a battery is made, where it comes from, the components where they come from, and how you dispose of it. Make your mind up then, and then look at the cost. I don't think we've really vetted out the cost of batteries and what it costs to replace a battery. You hear a lot. You hear about it. Again, that's maybe that's just hearsay. Talk to somebody that's had to replace a battery. See if it's true or not, what it costs. Talk to somebody that has an electric car and ask them if they've had any problems with it. We have problems with our gasoline cars, our diesel trucks. There's problems with everything. But don't put all your eggs in one basket. And as a country, you should never do that. We got to look a lot further than just what's around the corner. This is something that's going to affect this country for the next 100 years or more. If we get too far down the path and then we can't get back, then it'll be millions of dollars, millions of jobs lost because we made the wrong decision. It's not going to affect the people in Washington. It's not going to affect them financially. I think they'll probably be fine, but it'll affect 340 million people, and they're the next generations and the next generations that follow them. That's what we got to be careful for. Looking at something that's just good for you today is super short. I guess when you do that, how short-sighted can you be if all you're going to look at is what's good for you today? That can't be what the administration's looking at today. If it is, they all need to be replaced. You better be looking what's good for this country for the next many, many years out in front of us. We know there's going to be some changes, the way we do things in this country. There'll be some changes, sure, and hopefully they're all for the better. But hopefully there's none of them that we just bail off in before we vet it and make sure that it's correct. Well, it's at the end of the year. It's holiday time, but what's right after holiday time? It's your taxes. And we all have to pay taxes, and it always comes due at the end of the year, and you get your tax statement and everything in. And I don't think people really realize the industry in your community, whether you're in a port town, or you're in a refinery town, or you're in a sawmill town, or you're in a town where there's a plant, a coal mine, or whatever. I don't think people really look at the amount of industry that's around them that are paying taxes. If you take the industry away from a community and you lose that big tax base, then the people that are left are going to have to bear that cost, or you're going to have to make your police department get smaller. Your fire department's going to be a lot thinner or worked a lot harder. So I want people to look at what we've done. It's a good system. America's set up, it's a good system. None of us like paying taxes. And I hear some politicians say we should all pay our fair share. I agree with her. We should pay our fair share, but we shouldn't pay a percentage higher than the other person. That only works in the tax circle. When you go to the store and you fill your basket up with groceries and you go up to the counter, if you make $1,000 a week, the groceries might be $200. If you make $10,000 a week, the groceries are going to be $200. It doesn't matter what your salary is, groceries are the same to you. The gas at the pump is the same to you. But our tax situation is always manipulated around that if you happen to make more than somebody else, then you deserve to pay a higher percentage. I believe you need to pay more because you made more. And that's pretty simple. A man makes $1 million, he needs to pay what $1 million tax is if it's 10 or 15 or 20%. But he shouldn't pay 30 or 40 or 50%. So we rely on businesses to pay the bulk of the tax. We rely on individuals to pay that tax also. And we penalize them if they do good. They don't just pay the same percentage, they got to pay a higher percentage. So when you take that refinery away, you take that industry away that's already paying a higher tax anyway, then somebody's going to have to pick that up. Somebody's going to have to pick that shortfall up. That's going to go back onto the community. That's going to be devastating for communities. Unfortunately, we know of some already right now. I won't get into that today because we want to go talk to those people. We want you to hear what they have to say, not what I'm telling you, because again, that's hearsay. Let a man that's worked at a plant for 38 years show you his pink slip. No, and hey, and when did he get it? 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. And a couple of weeks after the first of the year, he's unemployed. And guess what? There's another 200 or 300 people that got him too. And there's no remorse except that people are just saying, hey, we can't comply. So that's going to trickle down through that community. That's a sad situation to lose your job because administration don't want what you do anymore. Now, grant you, there's nothing that's foolproof. There's nothing that's so sanitary in construction out here that we don't create a little mess every now and then. But I guarantee you, we've done it pretty good, and we've done it better than any other country in the world. And we're going to take that away and sub that out. So we're going to lose that tax base, and guess what? The people that are left in that community are going to pick up that. I don't think anybody thinks about that. We're sitting here and we're thinking, oh boy, I'm going to get an electric car. That's what probably made in Japan. Okay, so we didn't even get those jobs. The batteries and they're going to be made overseas. All this is made overseas and brought to us here for us to choke down and to bear it. If the administration wanted to change course of this country, why not at least do it with American workers? How short-sighted is it? Think about that. What is the end goal here? That you want to change the course of the country. You don't want oil and gas anymore. You want the batteries. You want the wind farms. You want all that. But you're buying it from a foreign country. What a slap in the face to the American people. That is so short-sighted. I don't know how anybody could stand up there and say that I'm going to double down on my policies. I'm going to double down on my policy. And they say, well, we don't have right now. We got more people working. We got more people sitting at the house because they don't want to work because of his policies. You keep giving it away, and the taxpayer, all the money that's given away, that's going to come back to the taxpayers, or it's going to come back to your children and your grandchildren to have to bear that someday. You don't make a debt and it just goes away. I've heard some of the people in Congress say that we can't spend too much money. We'll never run out of money. Now you think about that. Now those are intelligent people. A law degree does not make a president. Common sense, some business sense, and a lot of hard work and doing what's right and doing what's in your heart for this country, that makes a good president. Just because somebody's educated that's not going to make the best president. A person that's had some of the problems that we're talking about today and have overcome them, that's the man or woman you want in office. And it's got their head screwed on straight to help this country, not take this country in just to another direction. Just our children in school. I remember back in the 50s when I first started in school, they had a bell that would ring. And when it rang, we were out for recess or whatever, we all lined up outside orderly. The second bell ring, you walked in and you sat down. And we had rules then. We didn't run wild. You shouldn't let the economy run wild. You shouldn't let your industry run wild. You shouldn't let the crime run wild. There is boundaries for everything. But when you take them down and you just go full force in a direction, no matter how much money it takes, how many jobs you lose, and what the devastation is for communities, and you just say we have to bear it, there's something wrong with that thought policy. You have to get away from that. And for some reason, our president won't. He's doubling down on everything he said he would do. He's made your life a lot harder. It's going to get even tougher. Don't think that just because things are going to get green, the Green Deal was supposed to be more about money, more about redistributing the wealth of the world. It wasn't about what they're making it into now. It just got convenient to go that way. It's a better sale to the American people that you're cleaning up the environment, that you're making it safer for them, that you're going to take a lot of this toxic stuff out of the air so we won't get sick. So we let a foreign country make what we were making, and then we'll breathe that tomorrow. We just didn't breathe it today. It'll rain and you'll get that down on you. So you're still going to get that, except you're going to get it at a bigger pace, like I said earlier, because they're not going to do it. They're not running their industry under the restrictions we're running ours. Don't forget your taxes that's coming up in January that you have to pay. Don't be late on it because the interest and penalty will kick in. But thank God you've got industry to help you pay it. Or once that goes away, your taxes are going to quadruple. And that's a sad situation. And what I'm going to do over the next couple of years is I'm going to point out to you every time I find something that this administration done that cost this country money or hardship. Not something that might have been that they could have laid on another administration. I want to hone in just on what this administration does. That's my focus. My focus is not who's going to be the next president and who's going to win the next election. My focus is to watch who's there now. That's what you need to keep your eye on. Don't take your eye off of what's leading your country today and be wishing down the road. You better pay attention to what's in front of you now. Another problem that's facing the country today you always have interest rate people look at, and it's a problem, and that's what regulates kind of how all your businesses operate on. A lot of them are on credit. People buying homes, people buying cars, people buying appliances. A lot of people use credit, and that's been the American way, and it's nothing wrong with that. And banks and lending institutions, they make their money and they're employing people. So it's a good thing. It's nothing wrong with that, except when the interest rate goes up to where it shuts off your economy. And that's what's happening right now. If you look at the amount of homes that are shutting down, they're not building these projects out. A lot of people are turning and walking away from projects that they had on the board, just leaving them out there. And that's got a ripple effect that's going to be far-reaching, way more than what people believe. A lot of people, if they've got money in the bank, they say, well, the interest went up to 3% or 5% or 6%, I'm going to make more money. But unfortunately, more of us have to borrow money. And when we're having to borrow money to do whatever we're going to do, and we can't afford a new car, we can't afford a new house, or we can't afford just to replace something, well, then that hurts the economy. It has a trickle-down effect that way. If you can't afford to pay the interest on that new car, then you're not going to buy that car. You'll drive the one you've got longer. And maybe that's just the way life goes. I guess that's it. It's ups and downs, and we all understand it. But an interest rate is that's the quickest way to kill an economy, to bring in the inflation. And then when that happens, and you look at where our inflation is today, the highest has been in 40 years. You couple that up with everything else that you look at that is a negative. It's not a positive. You're looking at all the negatives that are out there. And this administration just turns a blind eye to it. I don't understand that. You just can't imagine people just looking at their credit card bill, looking at their interest rate on their house because it moves up, or looking at on their car loan, if it's not fixed, it's going up, or you go down to buy something and you see now what the interest rate's going to be, and you say, well, I can't buy it because I have to wait till interest goes down. Well, that's just a full circle on the economy. Then that means those people that were making that product or building that house, well, they're going to lose their jobs. So there's going to be more and more people lose their jobs or come on hard times. Interest rate is a killer. That's what causes inflation to be what it is today. And you have to hang that one on President Joe Biden. He gets credit for that. The Democrats own that 100%. They get credit for that. And it doesn't seem to bother them. I don't really know how high interest rates got to get or how bad things have got to be before American people say, you know what, I've had enough. I know this is wrong. And you can't just take it in your own hands and go out there and storm the courthouse or do things stupid. What you have to do is you have to vote. You have to talk to your neighbor about voting. You have to have some town hall meetings and get together and say, look, guys, we know this is wrong. Ladies, when you go to the store, you know what it's costing you. Your men and the women are both working to try to make ends meet. It's unfair. Many, many years ago, you had one person that worked. Now you have two people that work, and that's okay. Everybody has an opportunity to get out there and better their life and better their family, but you shouldn't have to work just to pay the high interest or because groceries got too high or gasoline got too high. You need to be able to take the fruits of your labor and enjoy it and not pay it out because somebody's mismanaged this economy for you. You don't run your household that way. We don't run our business that way. We don't depend on electricity every day here, sure, to run your air conditioning, sure, to run your lights. But if I was dependent on a solar field today, solar panels or wind farm, with the overcast we've had this week, the rain we've had in our forecast, you don't think that they run the same when the sun's not shining on, because they don't. And when there is no wind, what happens then? It's all unreliable. It's all untested to a big degree. It's tested at a little degree. That's why we need it in moderation. We need to be a substitute and an ally to what we're already doing. We need the solar panels. We need the wind farms. I'm 100% for that. I'm 100% for anything that improves and makes this country better. But to put all our eggs in one basket, like I said earlier, that's so wrong. That's so short-sighted. And to let your interest rate choke your economy when we had the best economy going, that has to fall on the administration. Can't fall on the prior administration, because you look at what the interest rate was at that point, and you look at what it is today. And they're doing nothing to control that, except blaming big oil that they're making too much money, or blaming this industry that they're making too much money. And it's always the blame game. It's always the blame game. And they're sitting there with the power to make all the rules and all the laws. But they blame individual companies for making our interest and our economy and our inflation what it is today. Isn't that convenient? That is real convenient to always be pointing the finger at somebody else. Sooner or later, you're going to get somebody in that White House that'll stand up, a man or a lady, and say, look, I own it. It's me. The buck stops with me. Good or bad, and be honest with the American people. Won't that be refreshing? I'd like to see, I hope I live to see that. If you live on the Gulf Coast like we do, or you watch news every year in hurricane season, you see that we experience some unsettling times here. We love the Gulf Coast, obviously, or we wouldn't stay here, because sometimes it gets pretty testy. But when a hurricane comes through, we have a lot of disruption of energy. Well, we lose our electricity almost immediately. And most new homes that's been built in Southeast Texas or the Gulf Coast, Florida, all the way, even up the East Coast. A lot of the new homes have got a standard generator in those homes now. And old homes have been retrofitted for generators to be hooked up to them. And most of them run on natural gas, if you're lucky enough to have that to you. But the people out in the country, and a lot of us, we use diesel generators. Here at our office, we have diesel generators here. We don't have natural gas to this part of Beaumont for some reason, but that's okay. We have several generators here, and when the lights go out, And we're actually the last on the grid here. We have the last pole here with electricity coming into our facility. It doesn't go any further, kind of on a street that doesn't have a lot of traffic. But that's okay, because we've adapted to that over the last almost 50 years that we've been here. We have auxiliary power. Millions of people in this country have auxiliary power, and that's either natural gas or diesel. And again, now you got to understand that's not carbon free. What he's promised you is carbon free by 2035 or 2050. America, that's never going to happen. He's telling you something that he can't do. I mean, that is so unfair to tell the American people something that's not going to happen. It's never going to get there. I'd like to see the size of the battery that'll get Air Force One off the ground. I think he's going to need jet fuel. The next president will, the next one after that. That's what they need to get that jet up. That's what we need for our jet fighters. That's what we need for our military, is the fuel to make sure that they're able to get out there when we have a problem. These, the big battleships, the big carriers, they have nuclear power. They don't like that as a means of electricity on land. They want those nuclear powerhouses to go away. I mean, if you just look at the broad brush that he's painting over our industry, what the energy industry is, he's just painting over all of it and replacing it with a battery or a wind farm or solar panels. That's ridiculous. And American people, you're a lot smarter than that. Don't just take it from an old man in Texas. You know it's wrong. You know what he's telling you is wrong. It's not obtainable. He'll never get there. Nobody that's living today, let's put it out there 100 years down the road, 110, they're getting where they keep people living long. Put it out there 115. You're not going to see it completely gone. Carbon free, that's a dream. And it's his dream, and unfortunately it's becoming our nightmare. People that live in the area that we live in, like I say, all up and down the coastal area where the refineries are, the pipelines are, the plants are, the coal mines and all that, he's our nightmare. And our nightmare is going to bleed over to the whole United States, because it's going to affect the economy in a bad way here. And when enough of it is subbed out to the foreign countries, and a lot of them, they don't like us to start with. A lot of these countries treat their women and children bad, and we buy from them. A lot of these countries still treat humans bad in lots of ways, and we're making them rich. It's ridiculous to take our money and send it overseas and put our people out of work. And right now he's boasting and beating himself on his chest about the rate of unemployment, about how many people are working today. That's short-lived. You start laying these refineries off, you start shutting down these plants, and you'll see what's going to happen. But when people come back into our community after a hurricane and all the power poles are down, thank goodness your car's running on gasoline, because there's no battery, there's no place to charge your battery. Thank goodness when you get home, if your home is still intact, that you have a generator there, that all your food hasn't spoiled, or you can get in and out of the heat, or in wintertime when the ice hits, you get out of the cold. There's a lot of things that we endure in this country, and it's just the place where you live. California, they have earthquakes. Southeast Texas, they have the hurricanes. Up in the Panhandle, they have the tornadoes. But you look around, and that's the America you love. So you stay there and you rebuild, and that's what makes America great. It's the people in this country is what makes it great, not our natural resources. And it's not our leaders. They may take the credit for it, and they may say they're the reason we're great. They're not the reason we're great. This country was great before our president was born, and I hope and pray that it's great many decades in the future. Most of what's going on in Washington today is because of climate, and that's what they're laying it on. Our climate is in jeopardy. There's been a whole lot of studies done on this. There was a study done with over 500 scientists. They gave their report, and they said climate was not a critical situation at this juncture. If you look around your town, if you live in a rural area like I do, and we get a 4-inch rain today, and I'm driving down the road and I see the water coming out of the woods and it's getting to the ditches, and I get into Beaumont here and the roads are flooded, and it's the same 4 inches that just fell. Well, it hurried up and got to the ditches because Beaumont's literally paved. There's concrete, there's blacktop, there's hard surface everywhere. And so all that water gets to the ditch quicker. Now, the government wants to say that the reason we're having floods and the problems we're having, flash floods and so forth, it's a climate change that's causing that. I think it's more of what we're doing as far as the way we build everything out. And to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from that, and that I know that what I'm saying is correct, city engineers have figured this out. That's why now when businesses open up or they build new businesses, a grocery store, a pharmacy, or whatever, they have to build a retention pond to catch that water that comes off of that concrete parking lot they've got and hold it for a period of time before they let it go out to the ditch or to the drainage ditch or to the river, so we don't have a flash flood. So it's not the fact that we have a climate change that made that water, that we have floods now. What's happened is we've got the water to the ditch quicker. We haven't built new drainage ditches in Beaumont, so we know that that's not the answer. The answer is if you drive down through all the industry in town now and you look around, everybody has a retention pond. We're doing that now to hold that, to slow that down. Same thing with the heat. Think about the heat. Walk outside, put your hand on the hood of your car. When in summertime, let's do it in August when it's 103 degrees in Beaumont. Put your hand on the car about 2:30 in the afternoon and reach down and touch the grass. And you tell me which one's hotter. They're both under the same rays of the sun. It's just one now is a shiny object. And so we reflect that back up. That's helped warm things up too. So I think that all of the buildings, all the glass, all the mirror glass, all the roofs on houses, and so all that we've built over the last 100 years in this country. Look how much hard surface. Look how much shiny objects we got reflecting it back up. Don't tell me that hasn't raised the temperature just a little bit. But at the same time, if you just wait just long enough, it'll freeze too. The freeze comes back just like it has every year. And thank goodness for that. The climate change is not something to panic about today. Should we just ignore it? Absolutely not. You shouldn't ignore anything that is looming out there that could be a problem. But I guarantee you, they're selling they're making you think that they're scaring you. You know, fear is a way to control people, and it's a weird way to do it, but that's been used for thousands of years. When somebody fears what's fixing to happen, you generally have their attention. They pay close attention to what you're doing. They're trying to do that. They're trying to make fear their ally here. Don't think that that's the problem today, is that the climate is changing so fast that if we don't do something about it in your immediate lifetime, that this world is going to disappear. It's not. We're doing a lot of that on our own. And like I say, the engineers have figured it out, and they're trying to correct some of it. But it's not just because of the climate that we're having this problem. This problem is, as I look at it, is an ego problem and a political problem. It's not just the climate. We've had the climate around us for many, many years. We just haven't had this administration, but just 2 years, and that's long enough.